Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. This is anyways, well, this is the lovely Carli Jo, and I would love it if you would take a minute and just really quick introduce yourself. Carli and I actually met because she and I have been in an amazing training program this past year with Layla Martin and the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality. And yeah, but she and I have had some fun adventures together this past year. And anyways, so yes, please, if you would, tell us a little bit more about you.
I'm actually drinking the tea that I got with you in Denver. I just realized it's kind of random.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, connects us.
Horizon.
So I'm Carli Jo, and I live in Los Angeles, California, where I am a Cannabis Feminist Consultant and Sensuality Coach. So I merge the work of diving deeper into your self-pleasure and your inner sensuality and sexuality with cannabis. My own personal journey with my sexuality is I was really, really, really wanting to be more present in my body and in my sexuality. I felt myself getting really, really close after a lot of practice and a lot of time spent in what I call like pleasurable meditations, but I just kept hitting a wall. I couldn't let go into the surrender part of, receiving pleasure and just being present in my body. And as a cannabis user since I was in high school, it was always something, I did recreationally. And then I thought, well, maybe I should try because cannabis really helps turn off the cortex and heighten all the senses. So maybe I should try that with my meditation. And I did. And for me, it really showed me what is possible. It helped me connect more to my yoni, sacred space, for the, the vagina and my body. And it was just such a magical, merge for me that I was like, wow, there's really something to this. And you don't completely turn off the cortex, like you're still thinking, but I feel like the thoughts that are coming through are the ones that are kind of in the back of the brain that is maybe being stifled by the shame or the guilt or, I shouldn't be having these thoughts. And cannabis is like, shh. Let the free, creative, medicated thoughts come through. So it just really helped me tap in and be more aware and more present with my body.
Yes, well, I know. Well, you live in California and I live in Colorado, both two states where marijuana is legal, cannabis. And I am very fascinated because I actually haven't probably smoked in years, right, since college. But I do actually really have found a lot of benefit in CBD oil, kind of with helping with my headaches and things like that. But I'm curious, as I love this because I find it so fascinating, the Cannabis Feminist Consultant. I love that title that you are. And I would love if you would kind of speak to more about what you do with that, like how you would help someone that is coming to you with that. And I know it's actually kind of a new upcoming niche out there. As I was telling you, I met another woman who is a coach that kind of helps women coach women on how to use cannabis. But I just find that so interesting. So I would love if you would just maybe speak to that for another moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the consulting part of it?
Yeah. Like how would you,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's really interesting. So as California is turning, and there is something to say about the state of California kind of being pioneers. Yes. Like what happens here kind of changes the course of sometimes the world. I mean, the media. And I heard my first cannabis advertisement on the radio actually the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, it's real. It's happening. And so as we're starting to find more benefits for THC and CBD, especially the CBD since it's non-psychoactive, people are starting to lean in a little bit more than they ever were before. So they're saying, oh, I heard this helps with arthritis. I heard this helps with inflammation, or cannabis helps with so many different things. And so people that have known that I'm a cannabis user for years are all of a sudden interested in hearing about the healing benefits of it. And so what I do is I work with people one-on-one and I consult them. I get to know them and their bodies and what it is that they are, maybe struggling with, or what they want to maybe improve on, and I help them, connect them to a product that would be really good for them. So recently I've been promoting these honey sticks, and they're 10 milligram indica, and it's this really, really cute, tiny little honey that's on literally a stick, and you just put it into your tea. And last week, so I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm at the end of a cold, so I apologize if I have to cough. But last week I had such a horrible sore throat that tears were coming out of my eyes every time I had to swallow. And I thought, between over-the-counter drugs where it's like a mystery what's in there, or my whole line of cannabis that's, behind me, I'm going to go try those honey sticks. And so the intention, because when I use cannabis, it's all intentional. So for me, my intention was help me feel better in my body and help me, get some good rest tonight. But what I didn't know is that it was going to reduce the pain by 50% in my throat. It was incredible. So I'm discovering new ways to use it and new benefits of it as well. And finally, science is starting. There's a research center at UCLA that a friend of mine is actually heading and doing the research on the benefits of cannabis, CBD and THC. So it's finally research is happening. We're going to get some science, some facts behind it. And they're working on the sexuality link as well.
Yeah. Well, I know, because it kind of seems a very probably taboo subject in some areas too. But I do agree, the more pure any kind of healing modality can be, the better, right? There's no chemicals, there's not a lot of processing that happens, with, like you mentioned, who knows what's in it. So that's cool. But I also am fascinated how the sexuality piece ties into it. And I know you mentioned, when we were talking before, that you were wanting to talk a little bit about your orgasmic journey. And is that kind of connected to this? Or I'd love to go down that road, if you will.
Excuse me. Okay, cool. So you asked me to talk a little bit about my orgasmic journey. So so I've been in this course with you for a year and a half now, and it's had its moments of intensity and it's had its moments of frustration. There were some childhood blockages and stuff that I didn't even know I had, that I had to uncover. So it was really cool. It's just little by little, it's just chipping away at this, almost this cultural programming blockage that was happening inside of my body. And I just kept practicing an hour a day, 5 days a week, doing these pleasurable meditations. And I was actually up in Northern California for a wedding, and I had some cannabis that I had specifically heard about. I'm very, very, like I said before, my cannabis use is very intentional. So I do my research. I only use farms that are organic and sun-grown, and I tend to stay in the Emerald Triangle up north. So I had heard about this strand, and while I was up north, I was like, all right, I'm going to order this. So I had it delivered, and this happens to be with my partner. After him and I had been working a long time on our sexuality as well, we set an intention for our sexuality, our sexual session, I should say. And then I set an intention for the cannabis. And then we had a lovely session together. And that is when I became multi-orgasmic for the first time. And I declared myself as an orgasmic woman after that happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, I grew up my whole life believing that only 20% of women are allowed to feel orgasms and to feel pleasure through penetration. And when I became sexually active at 18, I thought, okay, I guess I'm just a statistic. I'm just one of those, 80% that doesn't really enjoy sex. And I lived the majority of my life like that, thinking I'm just not one of the special ones. And it was through a lot of really intense work and uncovering different pieces of the body that wasn't in line with that goal, and the cannabis, that I was like, screw that, I am orgasmic. And I want everybody to know about it. Because if I can do it, like, you can do it as well. With or without cannabis. That just happens to be my journey, but
Yeah. But I think that's so amazing, because I do feel like so many women think that it's just kind of a luxury. And maybe that's just not my lot in life. Like, I'm just not orgasmic. I'm just one of those, 20%, or, everything's fine. It's not that really a big of a deal to me. But I would be curious, what would you say, like, before, when you were thinking that way, and now that you know that you can be orgasmic, it just takes a little uncovering. How is your life different?
oh my gosh. It's so night and day between the person I used to be and the person I am now, because I believe that when you are fully living in a developed sensuality, you can use that sexual energy for anything. Like, and that sensual energy is mine. Even though cannabis, excuse me, even though cannabis was involved in showing me what's possible, it was still my body. I produced those orgasms, me. So that was my body and my pleasure. And that was such a shift for me, that everything that I need is inside of me. I just have to be able to tap in and resource it. And I have used my sensual energy for creative energy, which has then built my entire business. I use it for nurturing energy, for resourcing and self-love and self-soothing. And the greatest part is learning that it's mine. It's no one else's.
I love that so much. Yes, everything you need is inside of you, and you just tap in. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It is amazing how, and just so you also, I've known you, not that long, but you are just so radiant. Like, I can just see the radiance shining out of you. It's so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I'd love to know too, if we're talking about reawakening pleasure, you mentioned that, the cannabis is one way, really listening to your body. I love how you talked about how you and your partner really set an intention and created kind of a sacred space. So if you could speak to that a little bit, because I know a lot of women listening are in long-term relationships, and, sometimes it can be challenging to get your partner on board. And I would be curious if your partner was always on board, or if it was kind of a journey to get him on board, or how that has played out.
Yeah. I'm very, very fortunate to have a partner that's very open-minded. He's on board, but he's not fully as spiritually connected and, as we are, and some other of my friends' partners are, but he's definitely willing, and he's willing to try anything. And so we definitely do a lot of practices together, like sex magic. We really want to buy a house. So we do sex magic practice to manifest different things, like a house. It's interesting. We've had our process. We've only been together for a couple of years, and so we're still developing our sexual life. I think you develop it with your partner, your whole relationship. Probably you're still learning and growing, because individually we're learning and growing every single day. So it would make sense that your sexuality with your partner is also growing, and you have to continue to learn. And when I was having a hard time being present, I realized that he was as well. So something that we did is, when we were going to go into an intimate session with each other, we would sit on the bed, we would look at each other's left eye, just look into each other's left eye, and we would say, we are now in our sexual sacred space. So that would help us tap in to the space that we have created and leave all of the BS like outside of that space, almost like a golden egg or the couple bubble, if you're familiar with Wired for Love. You know, it can be anything. It can be a golden egg, it can be a couple bubble. It's just this like really protected shell that you put around the two of you, where the both of you are at the highest integrity, and you're both, you know, willing to keep it safe and be loved and share love and all of that stuff with each other inside of that bubble. And that really helped us move from life to we're in that sacred space now. And then we would set intentions as well. So my intention was always to be present with my body and to be more connected to his body. That was always mine, because I was having such a hard time staying present. It was like, what it was for me is I would, as soon as I felt pleasure in my body, it was almost like this weird guard would come down and like put a wall down every single time. So it was like, as soon as I acknowledged that pleasure was coming, I would get shut out of pleasure. So that was what I was working with and what I was trying to block through. And there was one session, cannabis was definitely involved, where I just repeated to myself, surrender, surrender, surrender to pleasure. And for the first time, I was able to just lay there, not have to think or push for the orgasm or like strive for it, and it just came. So that was a really good lesson for myself as well, is that, because there's just something like, it's weird. Have you ever had that experience where it's like you think about the pleasure and then as soon as you think about it, it goes away? Like, that's such a weird, like,
yeah.
How do you?
Well, I think it's interesting because then when you start thinking about it, you're moving out of your body a little bit, because you're, and also I think too, it's just so much, like you mentioned, like so much conditioning that we have coming along, that sex is wrong or sex is bad. And even when you are in a loving container where you're having, you know, consensual sex, a lot of times that can still come up, like, I'm, you know, this is bad, I have to shut that down. And we are so unaware, like you mentioned, you're so unaware that those messages, a lot of times, that they're still playing back there. It's very subconscious. But like you mentioned, like the more you kind of acknowledge it and just pay attention, and then the more you kind of allow yourself to experience that, and then also tap into that part of yourself that brings you back in and surrendering, because that's, like you mentioned, a huge part of it is being able to surrender to that experience. Many of us are afraid to like let go, like get to that point of really letting go.
Being able to let go, and whatever comes up, meeting it with loving essence or loving presence. That was another big one for me as well. It's like, whatever is happening in this moment, just meeting it with love and meeting it with presence was really key as well. And I have to say that, you know, as I speak to my sexual journey and how cannabis has helped me, I want to also make sure that I mention that I am able to be orgasmic with and without it.
Yes.
So to me, it just, like I said, it showed me what's possible, and my body, it's almost like it's almost like a muscle memory, or, you know, an energy memory, where it's like, oh, I remember this happening. Yeah, sure, we can do this again.
Yes. Well, another thing I want to touch on too, because I know you mentioned this when we talked earlier, and I too love this, one of our favorite tools from our program, and just, you know, that I've been working with for 3 or so years, and I know you've been working with it too, which is the Jade egg.
Yes.
And I know you use this also with your clients, and so I would love if you would just speak to kind of your experience with the Jade egg and how it, you know, how it supported you in your sexual journey.
Yeah, definitely. So right now I'm leading clients through Jade egg practices that helps them really integrate more pleasure into their bodies with their hands. So sometimes I'm like, when I'm speaking to clients about getting started, I'm like, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to ask you to put your toys away. just while we're working together, put all those vibrators away and let's go back to finding pleasure with our hands, being curious, being able to touch your own body and filling your own body up with love and like pleasurable energy is the first step for me and for my clients to really start to awaken their sexual energy that's within them. We are all born as sexual beings, so we have this in us. We just have to tap into it. And so that's the first thing I say. And then the jade egg is, I don't consider that a toy, but the jade egg as a tool. So what I do if my client is coming to me wanting to use cannabis, we actually go through a little ritual together where they are consuming and I'm leading them through it. And that has been a really beautiful process because I'm working with people that have been smoking for 20 some years. And for the first time, they're using it with intention and being guided through plant medicine, I guess almost like a shaman, I would say, has been really, really great for incorporating. So instead of, okay, I'm going to smoke and now I'm going to go have sex, or I'm going to smoke and now I'm going to go self-pleasure, we really bring it all together into our session. And we put intentions into the cannabis and we put intentions into our jade egg. And then as they're smoking or consuming, however they want to consume, that intention for the cannabis is coming into their body. And as they start to feel, and this is anyone who's watching this that is a cannabis user can do this themselves, as they start to feel the medicine kicking in, meet it with gratitude. Meet it with, thank you so much for entering my body. Thank you so much for helping me in this session today, or whatever it is that you want to say. So that way we look at it as plant medicine and that it's helping us. Because sometimes when we smoke or consume, we get a little anxious, and that's usually because things that are stored in our body, the plant medicine's lifting up and kind of forcing you to deal with, and that can feel overwhelming. And that's where I hear a lot of people say, oh, I can't really smoke anymore, it makes me too anxious. Well, I would say, what are you smoking? Is it organic? And are you meeting the plant medicine with loving gratitude? And then from there, we tap in and make sure that they're feeling okay with the medicine and they're feeling calm and relaxed. And then we move into a session where it's the most beautiful thing ever to lead someone through self-exploration. So far I don't see them, but I'm very much in the room with them via computer.
Right.
My energy is in the room with them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's really beautiful to be guided through exploration and touch and connecting to your pleasure. It's really amazing.
Well, I want to say too, just FYI, for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, let me know, because I'm checking on you ladies, and thank you so much for watching. Handan and Lisa and Tiffany. But yeah, just feel free if you do have questions to ask away. And I find it I like how you have an intentional use of the plant medicine, because I feel like a lot of times you can just use those types of things to numb or to not actually experience your feelings. And I know for a lot of people, it can really help with anxiety too. If they have like really bad anxiety, it can help to calm that. But like, as in using it, like you said, with intention and with a purpose. I love that. That perspective. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's really helpful to change the perspective of why you're consuming, especially if you're someone who has been consuming for years. I actually had a client yesterday who mentioned that she wasn't really consuming that much anymore because it wasn't really doing anything for her anymore, and it was making her feel like anxious. And she told me at the end of the session that just changing like you said, the perspective and putting the intention into it completely changed how she felt the medicine in her body.
Very cool. So let me ask you this too. If you had like maybe one or two tips to tell someone if they were looking to kind of tap into their pleasure again and like start going down this road, what would you advise?
Yeah. So, cannabis related or not, or
Either way, either way, either way,
Either
whatever
way.
you feel like you
Yeah.
want to speak to.
I would advise to put the vibrator away. Which is funny because if someone would have told me that a couple of years ago, I probably would have scowled at them. But now there's no use for it. Sometimes I'll bring it out, but I would say to start reconnecting with your hands and your fingers and letting your hands fill up with pleasurable energy and putting intention into the hands. Like my hands are now in service of pleasure.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
then touching your body. And even when you're in the shower, just finding moments to tap into sensation. Like, what does it feel like to rub your hands through your hair? Or what does it feel like to, it's funny, I've woken up in the middle of the night before with my arm up in the air and me tickling it. Because I love that feeling so much. And so also slowing down. That's a really big one too. A lot of us just kind of rush through our intimacy and our self-pleasuring, and being able to just slow down and really breathe, the breath too. Not holding your breath.
Yes.
Breathing deep inhales and exhales.
Thank you so much for all your delicious wisdom. And I would love to, if you can I'm seeing if hi, Tiana, if there's any questions. Again, if we don't get to them now, we can always come back and answer them later. So, but I would love if you would share where everyone can find you.
Yeah, so my website is carlijo.com. It's CARLIJO.com. And I have an amazing team working with me on building like an epic global pussy posse is what we're calling it.
Yes.
And it's my like dream is to connect women around the world that are cannabis users and that use cannabis in their sexuality. Being in California and for you in Colorado, we are so, I don't know if the word privilege is the right word, but we have the benefit of the stigma here of cannabis being something that we use for a beneficial and medicine rather than like the stigma. The stigmas don't really fly around this part of the country too much, and so I'm really fortunate. That's the word I was looking for. Fortunate to be connected to so many amazing women in my community that we hold Cannabis Feminist Women's Circles, where women come together and we sit in a circle and we share flower and we each individual person talks. And so that is my goal to create globally. I want women in all different corners of the world to be able to come online with me once a month and be able to consume like in the comfortability of their home and talk about their connection to cannabis. Because there's a lot of women that I know, I was personally there, where we stay in the closet. We don't come out as a cannabis user because of the stigmas around it and the fear that we're not going to be loved, we're not going to be respected, or we're not going to be safe if we come out and say that we are a cannabis user. And that is really sad to me. And it wasn't until I got with that group that I realized I don't have to hide my cannabis use. My intentions for using it are so beautiful and so pure. And I really want that for every woman, to know that there is this community where you're safe and you're held and you can share and explore and talk to us about why you're using it. And also I will be leading practices and exercises. So global pussy posse.
Love it. Yay.
Yeah. And then, if you're in South Africa and you're like, man, I don't have any women to smoke with, then it's like, I would love if, maybe we were able to connect people through it as well. And like, people can get together and share, because smoking and stretching is a big thing here. My girlfriends, we get together and we smoke and we stretch. And so there's just so many, like, the flower brings people together in such a beautiful way.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Carli Jo. And so again, you can find her at www.carlijo.com, CARLIJO.com. And I'll also put that in the comments. And yeah, thank you, ladies, so much for watching. And I am so happy that I got to speak with you. Thank you so much, Carli Jo.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and speak upon my love affair with cannabis with everyone.
Yes. And yeah, if there's any other questions, again, post them and we'll get back to you. And hope you all have a beautiful day. Bye.